Hi to my fellow classmates, my name is Michael. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about Henry, Sarah, and James Murdick. Those three names might not sound all that significant to you. Perhaps some of you have never heard of them. But basically what they're famous for is they gave birth to one of the oldest still operating fudge companies in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, more specifically on Mackinac Island. It is now called Murdick's Fudge. They put out a fantastic product. I had the pleasure of being in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan just a couple weeks ago and got to stop in at Murdick's Fudge and see the whole fudge making process, and it was really cool, really interesting stuff. But so let's get back to the family that actually created this. So they moved to the island around 1880. At the time, it was just Henry and Jerome, the father and the son. They were the ones that moved there originally. Little is known about where Sarah came from. What we do know is that she came into the picture during 1887, is when she moved to the island to be with her family. And when she came there, she brought with her her family's recipe for homemade fudge. And part of the process for how her family made it kind of revolutionized the way that it's currently made today. What they do is they cook large amounts of sugar and other ingredients. The original recipe calls for a total finished product of like 35 pounds. So you put all the ingredients into a big copper kettle, and then you use what looks like a boat oar to stir it, cook everything down so that it's pretty much a liquid, and then you dump it onto a big marble slab. Marble being excellent for regulating temperature, stuff like that. And then they would take putty knives and just keep folding the liquid over on itself over and over and over again until it started to cool down and solidify. So like I said, it was a cool process to watch. But so they were the first ones to use the marble slab for making their candy. Fast forward to around World War I, this caused a lot of problems with sugar shortages. And anybody who knows anything about making candy or making fudge, if you don't have sugar, you're kind of wasting your time. So the whole process repeated itself again during the World War II era, where there were a lot of sugar rationings, a lot of sugar shortages. Product was just really hard to come by. So what they did was they started playing music inside of the shop, loud enough for the people who were walking by outside to hear, and they installed these large ceiling fans in the ceiling, basically the idea being that you get all the aroma from the rich smell of the fudge being made to go out of the shop, so that the people walking by would smell it and it would draw them in. And of course it worked. So they were able to bail themselves out of the whole sugar shortage thing. And then the Great Depression hit. Unfortunately, they kind of had to sell the business at that point in time. At the time, Jerome had taken over the business from his father by then, and he was making these 35-pound batches of fudge at a time. Unfortunately, tourism was down, stuff like that. So he was only selling maybe a pound of fudge a day if he's lucky. So with that being said, unfortunately Jerome had to sell the business. So in 1940, he sold the business to Harold May, who, as part of the business agreement, he made them sign a no-compete contract, basically stating that for X amount of years, I believe the original contract was for 10 years, but for 10 years they were not allowed to make fudge on the island. They were not allowed to compete with that business any longer. So what Jerome did, he found a way around this. Basically, there was an entrepreneur that came to the island in 1955. His name was Bob Benzer. And Jerome and his wife Grace took a liking to this guy almost immediately. took him under their wing, basically raised him as the son that they never had, taught him everything that they knew about the fudge making process. And Jerome he opened up another restaurant. He called it the Murdick's Luncheonette. So he started selling his fudge inside of the luncheonette. Eventually, the idea being that they would eventually make enough money to buy the business back from Mr. May. And in that end, they were completely successful. So in 1969, Jerome got really sick. His wife had passed away prior to that. In the meantime, they had taught Mr. Benser everything that they knew on how to run that business. So he maintained the business up until 1969 on their behalf, at which point he bought the business back and converted it back to the original style, the original building, the whole 9 yards. He went back to basically the basics. And this caused him to be very successful. So they still today use the same recipes, the same formulas, the same method, and in that amount of time, spanning from 1969 until present day, they've opened up several locations on the island as well as off of the island in other parts of Michigan, as well as Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. It's said that their process revolutionized the way that fudge was made, from Boston to New Orleans to San Francisco. Basically, their method is the one that everyone uses now, and I gotta tell you, it's a good method. Thanks, guys.